Hi guys, so this week has been a bit of rough and tumble when it comes to Brexit, but at the end of the week following what appeared to be a breakthrough, Lord Frost, the Brexit Minister, was already backtracking on welcoming new flexibilities to the implementation of the Northern Ireland Protocol. So the Vice President of the European Commission, Maroš Šefčovič, spoke to Mark Carruthers of the BBC in Northern Ireland about trust. He was asked bluntly if he trusts the UK government.
I want to work with Lord Frost as closely as possible, as well with all stakeholders in the Northern Ireland, that we would find a solution to all these issues on the table, to put it in bed, start the new year with a new page and with a positive agenda for Northern Ireland and for EU-UK relations.
So I'll just ask you again, yes or no, do you trust the UK government?
Look, I mean, when I'm negotiating with a partner, I always come with a trust to my partner. But trust, of course, has to be earned. And trust is earned when you sign a deal, you implement them, and you respect them.
So that was an interesting response. Now, the EU originally wanted to have its own officials in Northern Ireland implementing the protocol. They wanted European staff on the ground doing the checks, but working with the British government to ensure that the single market was protected. This method was rejected by Boris Johnson's government, so that the EU was, in a sense, forced to allow the British to carry out the checks on its behalf. The Brexiteer government promised that it would carry out the checks and implement the protocol to the letter. This was part and parcel of the Northern Ireland Protocol. However, the EU was still willing to give Boris Johnson's administration some leeway. Grace periods were agreed so that both the UK government and businesses could have time to adapt. The plan was that while the British government built the infrastructure necessary to carry out the checks, both physical and technological, industry would familiarise itself with the procedures of trading between a third country and the single market. The EU had offered to extend the transition period back in 2020 a number of times. This would have provided the UK government a window where there would be zero pressure on them to set up the infrastructure. At the same time, it would have allowed businesses to operate as they were without checks, but begin the learning curve of post-Brexit trade operations. This, of course, was rejected by Boris Johnson's government. They wanted to end the transition period as soon as possible and, in a sense, crash out of the EU come what may. Johnson had the likes of the ERG snapping at his heels. Brexiteers wanted out, and he wanted to maintain their support. Remember, Johnson was one of those MPs who helped bring down Theresa May when she was trying to deal with the European Union. While the EU had been telling member states to prepare for Brexit, the Brexiteers were denying reality, telling both the public and industry that there would be very little or no disruption. This meant that both businesses in Great Britain and Northern Ireland had to learn quickly how to deal with the new reality. But it also meant that the British government wasn't ready to implement what they had said that they would do in the withdrawal agreement. Now we're in a position where the UK government is extending grace periods without the consultation of the EU, threatening to pull out of the Northern Ireland Protocol, calling the EU underhanded and untrustworthy, and wanting to annex Northern Ireland. The EU has been the only party in this agreement to meet with communities on both sides in Northern Ireland, to reach out to business leaders there, to hear their concerns and work with them to resolve the problems Brexit has created and the Northern Ireland Protocol can attempt to fix. Boris Johnson and his government have not engaged with all parties in Northern Ireland. They have not listened to the concerns of industry, and they have instead played political games by stoking fear and anger via their mouthpieces like the Daily Telegraph, where former members of government write anti-EU articles telling lies in an attempt to blame the EU for the problems Brexit has created, all the while deflecting criticism of Brexit. Trust is extremely important here. The EU perhaps made the mistake that it trusted Brexiteers to care about Northern Ireland, care about the peace process, and care about the agreement they signed. But perhaps they had no other choice. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.